don't do a head count when God is actually doing a heart count. Grace and peace, everybody. Welcome to part 3 of Sabbath School Study Group, the lesson beginning now in the book of 1 Corinthians. Today's subject, many in this city. When Paul goes from Athens to Corinth, it's easy to be intimidated in this big city with a whole lot of foolishness, a whole lot of people who've forsaken God or don't even know who he is. What do? Well, we want to look at Paul's example, and that's to recognize that when we're being faithful to God, God is being faithful to us. In other words, our labor is not in vain because his word does not go out in vain. And when we consider who's one of us, or when we consider someone who's faithful, we look at labels sometimes that are just on the outside, the external, memberships, or even denominations. But God is counting hearts, where we may be counting heads. Because in Acts 18 verse 4, it says that Paul reasoned in the synagogue every Sabbath, and he persuaded the Jews and the Greeks. And when Silas and Timotheus were come from Macedonia, Paul was pressed in the spirit and testified to the Jews that was Christ. Paul's testimony to the Jews was having an impact not just on those who knew of God, but it was having an impact on those who were Greeks, the uncircumcised. Not just literally, but more importantly, the uncircumcised of heart. Back in the day, we used to call them heathens, but now we say worldly people. We may use a term like secular. And we've got to understand what maybe we don't. And that is that God knows who belongs to him. And when he's looking at who belongs to him, he knows where the seed of the gospel is falling. If that's falling on fruitful ground, if it's falling into weeds or on stony ground, that's not our responsibility. Our job is to let the word go out. But God is the only one who truly knows where it's landing. And if we have our minds set there, it becomes very easy then to look at everybody as somebody who needs someone named Jesus. In Acts chapter 18, verse 8, here's a testimony. Why we can't do a head count? Because Crispus, the chief ruler of the synagogue, believed on the Lord with all his house. And many of the Corinthians, hearing, believed, and were baptized. Hearing and believed and were baptized. And one of them was the head of the institution that stood in opposition to the gospel. Crispus. That's pretty cool. Crispus. He's like a namesake of mine in the Bible. I don't see Christopher, but there's a Crispus. Chris, who was a leader of the synagogue, eventually started leading other people to Christ. We can't let, again, labels get in the way of God's leading. Paul lived, he preached, and God then leads Crispus and many others to Christ, to truth. So be encouraged, because in Acts chapter 18, just in case you missed it, verse 9, then spake the Lord to Paul in the night by a vision. And he says to him and to us, be not afraid, but speak and hold not thy peace. That's all we got to be responsible for. Speak, for I am with thee, and no man shall set on thee to hurt thee. Because I have much people in this city. He gets a vision, and with his eyes closed, he sees. In the dark of night, here comes the light. And God tells him, if you just maintain, if you just keep doing what I've asked you to do, you'll be counted faithful. Because there are many people, I would even say more people than you would count, Paul, that belong to me than you think. So don't do a head count. We will waste time counting when we need to spend time serving. Just do, and let God do the counting. But because if we waste our time counting and not preaching, we will lose the opportunity to do what God's called us to do. And that's reaching. Praise the Lord, everybody. I hope this encouraged you to keep living. If it blessed you, do me a favor. Make sure you hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you want to stay in touch with us. And if you want to see all 5 parts of this series together, check out the playlist right here.